Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a dangerous winter storm that could be coming into the early part of next week. Now there is one particular reason why I'm especially concerned about this, and it may not necessarily be what you think it is, but I will be obviously explaining that in just a second. So yes, this does look like a pretty powerful winter storm. I don't want to say that the snowy side of this system will be legendary, because it will have some significant aspects to it, especially across the western portion of the United States, across the mountainous areas. But it will have a lesser impact in terms of snow across, say, the plain states and anywhere east of the Rockies. Still, there could be some sizable amounts, especially depending on which model you look at. But the most concerning part I am concerned about is the severe weather, and I'll be showing you why in just a minute. So yeah, let's start talking about this without further ado, because I also want to go over a storm system that's going to happen in between that, and then all the different models that show the different interpretations of this, and then maybe just what's to come after this system, because yeah, this is just into upcoming Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And then afterwards, we have more storms on the way. So again, if you recall, the past few videos I've made was about a storm that I thought would be developing into a large system across the Northeast or somewhere across the United States with quite a bit of snow. It didn't really pan out that well. What it did do was develop a pretty, good snowy side across New Mexico and Texas. There actually were some amounts that were over 6 inches. I do believe there may be even some double-digit amounts here. There will be a bit of rain out of this. As you can see, it quickly develops tonight and into tomorrow. So there will be a storm across this weekend into Saturday. You can see some maybe marginal to slight severe weather risks, mainly a broad heavy rain event for a good portion of the United States. As it does push into Canada, notice cities like Quebec, Montreal, maybe Ottawa, not necessarily Toronto, will be picking up a little bit of snow, northern Maine as well, but it's not going to really intensify too quickly, and it's going to move out of here before we even know it. So that's the first system. Again, that one, it wasn't really kind of a bust in terms of that. I did get a little bit too far ahead of myself with regards to that forecast, but let's take a look at its snowfall footprint, because why not? There still will be some snow, as I mentioned. You can see mainly across southern Canada and obviously across New Mexico and Texas. The amounts across southern Canada, anywhere from 1 to 4 inches. Obviously you guys do that in centimeters, so go to Environmental Canada for those that live in Canada, and for the National Weather Service for those that live on the U.S. side of the border, to check the exact details of that. The bigger story that will affect a lot more people is the rain. It won't be flooding, but it definitely will be there. Cause a gloomy Sunday and early Monday for a good portion of the United States, and, well, a good portion of the South on Saturday. So that is that. However, we turn our eyes towards the west. Notice we have a series of several systems coming in across the northwest as this system is pulling away. Quite a bit of snow, quite a bit of rain. This thing will be producing quite a bit of wind, you could see, and especially across Alberta and into potentially Saskatchewan, into Manitoba, and a little bit of snow as well, for cities like Winnipeg, Brandon, whatnot, Saskatoon. Those cities will be picking up a little bit of snow. Nothing too incredible, especially for you hardy Canadians. This isn't really going to feel like much, but definitely, it's going to be there. Notice further across Wyoming, Idaho, we have one little small system that's going to be occurring tomorrow into Saturday. But then more importantly, on Sunday, you can see across Washington, Oregon, there are winter storm watches set up for the Cascades. There could be some heavy snow there. You can see as that line, kind of like that jet stream, just pours a lot of precip into Oregon, California eventually. And notice that eventually we do see this low pressure move out into the plains, does gather some moisture. And this is where really things start getting messy, and the models start disagreeing, because up until this point, the models have a relative agreement. So notice that we have one piece across southern Canada producing some snow, right, centered into western portions of Ontario and eastern, and I guess, yeah, most of Manitoba right there, with some snow across the big lakes there. And do note that we start seeing the snow spread out into the panhandle of Nebraska, southern Wyoming, southern Colorado, Utah. Again, this will be cold, not a rain-snow event, so a lot of that snow will accumulate effectively, and there could actually be some surprisingly heavy snow amounts across those areas. I'll show you that. Notice a stripe of snow spreads all the way into Minnesota, Wisconsin, so cities like Minneapolis, you have to be on watch for this. There may be a potential for snow here. Again, depending on which model you look at, there's a lot of differences there. Nebraska, North Platte, Lincoln, Omaha, all under the gun potentially for some snow. Doesn't look too significant, but at least a few inches. And what we start getting really concerned about here, and why I'm calling this dangerous, because this doesn't look bad, right? The thing is that what the GFS doesn't really show quite well here is the potential for a really big severe weather event. We have a lot of warm, moist air coming in from the south, a lot of cold air from this system. The ingredients are going to be set up for a pretty nasty severe weather event. Again, it would be going on at around this time frame, Tuesday and into Wednesday. And again, this just looks a little bit of green on the map. Trust me, I was reading what the Storm Prediction Center was saying about this. They are very concerned, and it's an uncomfortably large area. I'm just gonna say it right now that I would not be surprised if they issue a moderate, so a 4 out of 5 in terms of the Storm Prediction Centers for severe thunderstorm scales. So that would obviously be something that is significant. I don't think a high will be issued, but again, at that point, that's just speculation, and really a moderate high. The main point is it's going to be a large severe weather outbreak. I'll go into more details on that, but notice that snow band that's centered across Minneapolis, right? So this is now Tuesday during the day. Not Minneapolis, Minnesota. Could be into Minneapolis, depending on the exact track of this. Notice Wisconsin, Rhinelander, Green Bay, maybe not. You're right on that warmer side of this, but into Iowa, into Nebraska. And we do see that, that system pick up that moisture from the south, obviously where that severe weather does occur. You can see that the GFS does show something a bit more into Tuesday across the Tennessee Valley, or just across Tennessee and into portions of the northern Alabama, Georgia area. That could be another day of severe weather, potentially, maybe not as significant as Tuesday, but definitely something we will have to watch for. And then notice this system, according to the GFS, really quickly pulls away, leaves quite a bit of snow pretty far towards the north, not much other impacts other than a fresh blast of cold air for kind of the northern half of the country. And I want to say that there are some large differences between this. The GFS shows that system a lot weaker compared to, well, what the Canadian even shows. And, the ensembles are also all over the place. So we'll have to see. There has been a weakening trend with that system overall for most models. But, again, that doesn't mean that the trend can be reversed, though that seems unlikely. Again, there's that first storm right in the next few days that pulls out of here again across southern Canada. This is the Canadian model. There's that system across the west we're concerned at. There's that severe weather outbreak across Louisiana that we could be really dealing with on Tuesday and especially into Wednesday. And then notice the Canadian shows a lot more snow for Nebraska, further north into Minnesota, so maybe Minneapolis getting in on this, cities like Mankato. And do note that northern Wisconsin, this is more angled. If you see, there's a bigger trough, so this system is a bit stronger, maybe makes that severe weather even worse. And do note that Nebraska, again, picking up that snow, again, some of these rates would be pretty heavy. You can see some of those darker colors there. It's a slower moving system. It allows itself to intensify more. You can see it brings that snow maybe into even southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and it really blossoms into a potentially very significant storm across southern Canada. Both in terms of wind, you can see with the help of this high pressure, there could be some fierce winds coming in from the north and west, but also just the snow up here is going to be pretty broad and widespread. Nothing really too significant for the northeast other than some heavy rain and obviously lake effect after that. So that's a Canadian interpretation. Already a lot more of a snow footprint. Let me show you that. So this is the total snowfall from the Canadian. Again, quite a bit of snow, especially for Minnesota there, Wisconsin, the UP, and to southern Canada. Obviously, I'll show you the severe weather in just a second, but I can't show you it on a snowfall map. Let's show you the GFS snowfall map. This is the first model I showed you. I just didn't show you the snowfall. Again, not as significant, but even if it does occur, still a nice stripe of 3 to 5 inches is possible, if not likely. A lot of these areas haven't really seen a big snow yet of the season, so this would be, again, something we'll have to watch for. That is the Canadian GFS. Let me take a quick look for you at the European. Again, very good model. It's one that's as good as the GFS. A lot of people think it's even better. I personally don't really. I think it's somewhere in between. About as good as the GFS. Notice there's that first system next few days, right? But again, all focus turns towards this bigger one right here. And again, it's kind of a two-part piece. There's one delivering some very strong winds across the southern Canadian prairies from our Canadian viewers, and then there's that little piece of energy that's going to be dropping quite a bit of snow into the mountainous west, but not that much in terms of the precip, or it's going to be limited because of the fact that we're just going to have very strong or it's going to be relatively quick moving. Notice the Canadian or the European really shows this well. That severe weather potentially erupting on Tuesday, and you can see how angled this is compared to the GFS. The GFS keeps it a lot more flat, so this would allow for a further intensification, even compared to the Canadian. You can see Minneapolis getting on some pretty heavy snowfall there, portions of Iowa, and again that severe weather from the south. Again, look at that cold blast behind the European, much more significant than that Canadian or GFS. So that it shows why the European keeps it as a much stronger system, and there's that difference already. Completely different storm structure. We have several cold fronts you could see developing, and again a wind machine. It may not be too strong, 983 millibars, but there's a high pressure that's going to be battling it as the cold air moves in. So these, you could see those millibars. Those are incredible. That's definitely going to cause some lake effect, and you can see that this blows into the northeast as a giant rain event, potentially with some snow on the backside. But across southern Canada, Ontario, Quebec, a lot of snow with this. Yeah, the biggest story for this will be obviously the rain, the severe weather, the snow initially, and then those winds, fierce winds. And then obviously after that, the European does keep things active as well. Let's take a look at that total snowfall from now the European model, because this one is obviously different from the rest, and you can see that they do show quite a bit of these amounts that are, Minneapolis potentially 4, 5, 6 inches, your first accumulating probably snow, plowable snow. Further north, right, also decent amounts obviously into southern Canada. And again, this is assuming a 10-to-1 ratio. A lot of this could be falling in colder temperatures, so this could be closer to 6, 7 inches of snowfall instead of 5 or 4. And again, this is still all under, all under kind of, question. There's a lot of differences here. You can see the European has been relatively consistent. This was yesterday midnight's model run, but it's still, even for the, the more consistent type, it's been jumping down quite a bit. This is what it showed yesterday at noon. You can see even more snowfall than yesterday or 2 days ago at midnight. You can see the track goes further south. And the GFS hasn't fared much better in terms of its consistency. This is its current model run, right? The one that just came out a few hours ago. This was yesterday at midnight, so you can see, there were some fluctuations. This is yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning. This is at midnight. So yeah, a lot of fluctuations. But we'll have to wait and see which model is correct, because at this point it's kind of anyone's guess. And I really don't have many more models to show you here. I could show you the England kind of the the UK model, right? You can see this one does show a bit more snow, so leaning towards maybe what the European was showing. And yeah, that's pretty much the only model I think I could other show you. Maybe the German one, the Icon. It's not really that good of a model, to be fair. But it's still one that I like to look at, and you can see that it does develop that initial snow across a good portion of the plains, but then it really quickly develops that cold front, and those winds are going to be strong, and potentially some pretty heavy rain for the northeast there. And then again, after that, the pattern looks active. Let me show you now what I'm really concerned about. So again, tomorrow with this upcoming system, the one that's going to be intensifying into tonight, nothing too significant. There is a marginal threat, but notice that many days away, there's already a enhanced risk. You can see that coloration. That's already a 3 out of 5, so far away as Tuesday. That's concerning. Again, I can't really go into the categorical risks, right? So what is the biggest threat? I assume there's a pretty decent tornado threat, hail threat, and some of a wind threat. You can see that that enhanced risk area is mainly across Louisiana, into portions of southern Arkansas and Mississippi and extreme eastern Texas, and that slight, which is that yellow, expands across a much larger area, pretty big population areas. And I do want to say that this probably will be expanding at, usually, even if this is 2 to 3 days out, usually the areas are, they expand each day slightly. So by the time we get actually to the day before, that enhanced might be as big as that yellow area, and we might have a new red again area in there indicating that moderate risk. And the slight risk might be well into Oklahoma potentially, or further into Alabama and Tennessee. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, because for now this is still kind of something that is again far away, but clearly the Storm Prediction Center is concerned about this. And then, of course, of the strong wind behind this will be another very high wind event. There's always, damage that results in that. But yeah, it's definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on for. They're already talking about it. And again, usually when you have something like this, I would say chances of a moderate being issued are unfortunately pretty high. So yeah, that's basically it. That's basically all I wanted to show you. I could get into some of the, maybe short or longer range models, or the ensembles, but matter of fact is that, it's kind of a mess, and it doesn't really help us with the forecast. So for now, again, it seems that the models are advertising for a good swath of snow across the upper plains, maybe the southern plains, I would say, or kind of, yeah, the central northern plains, not near the border of Canada, but a bit further south. If you look at some of the ensembles that go out very far and forecast some of this, weather for us. You notice that generally speaking, as we head into December, again, this isn't always accurate, but a lot of them are advertising maybe a slightly warmer pattern. I wouldn't take this, too seriously, as a lot of this isn't really too accurate. And I want to see, yes, so every once in a while it does go out to like 800 hours plus. So let's see what the most recent model runs are showing, just for the heck of it. And let's see. So let's take a look at the 2-meter temperature anomaly. So let's start it out at the current time frame. So this is what it currently looks like. And again, obviously the colors get duller as it's further out because they have less confidence, in the actual, there's more disagreement, so then things start getting muted out. But notice, in the short range, it looks very cold across the northern portion of the United States and northwestern portion. Again, this will mainly stay, it's a typical La Nina pattern where that cold air gets really, really strong and cold across the northwest, and it eventually, occasionally spills further eastward. But it's these contrasting air masses of warm and cold that result in those, those big, powerful storms and that severe weather outbreak. Notice towards early December, there could be a time period where that cold air kind of settles more deeper into the United States for at least a few days. Then we see some sort of a thaw, maybe, but you can see it's not really that profound. There's definitely pockets of cool air mixing in, so a decent amount of model disagreement. And yeah, anything past that's kind of anyone's guess. If you look at the previous one that went out that far, which was on the 23rd, or yeah, sorry, the 24th of, so this was on Thursday. And you can see again that cold air across the northwest definitely seeming to be a thing after we have several of those systems that come through, like the one we're talking about on Tuesday, but there could be another one after that. A lot of that cold air gets kind of brought in further south. You can see they're showing quite a bit of cold air. They're settling into early part of December. Then maybe some sort of a break, but it's stubborn and it's hard to kick it out fully. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, that's actually surprisingly good amount of cold air it shows. So, again, as I said, I think this winter might be front and loaded, meaning that the start of it will be fierce. So, we're technically already kind of in it, if you will. Not necessarily, but we could already see some snowstorms, and we're seeing plenty of activity, and I think we'll only see this kind of continue to increase. CFS, this is a climate model that is mainly used for the fun of it. I use it for the fun of it. It's not really that accurate, but I sometimes look at it, some maybe broad themes that I could pick up from it. There's that system that it shows on the 30th. You can see it showing it a lot stronger than what the other models are showing. But again, definitely a possibility. This is not really used to forecast individual storms, this model, as much as it is to see the overall pattern. Again, you can see that active Pacific flow kind of producing some snowstorms, maybe some nor'easters. I mean, there are some hints from that from some of the GFS ensembles, maybe not to that scale. But notice that as I push this through, right, the cold air is pretty prevalent. It's not looking like a heat wave December for any or early part of December. It doesn't really look too warm. It looks definitely more cold than warm. And yeah, I think plenty of snow chances are likely for a good portion of the United States, and anything further past is, you can see, just kind of a mix. So yeah, that's basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.